In the winter of 1862, as most Americans prepared for Christmas with what little comfort the Civil War allowed, a Confederate cavalry commander named John Hunt Morgan prepared something very different. Not a feast, not a celebration, but a raid so bold and so disruptive that Confederate soldiers would later call it Morgan's Christmas gift to the South. This is the true story of the Christmas raid of 1862. The man behind the mission, John Hunt Morgan, was not a typical soldier. He was a charismatic, unpredictable cavalry leader from Kentucky. He was handsome, daring, and beloved by his men. They called themselves Morgan's Raiders. They were known for speed, surprise, and vanishing before Union forces even realized they'd been attacked. By late 1862, Union General William Rosecrans was pushing deeper into Tennessee. Confederate morale in the region was low. Supplies were scarce. The Confederate Army desperately needed time. Time to regroup, time to reposition, time to prepare for the massive Battle of Stones River that would soon come. Morgan believed he could by that time, not by defeating the Union Army head-on, but by attacking the Union's lifeline. The target would be the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. The Louisville and Nashville Railroad was the backbone of Union operations in Tennessee. It carried ammunition, food, reinforcements, everything Rosecrans needed. If Morgan could destroy it, even for a short while, it would stall the Union advance. And so, on December 22, 1862, Morgan set out from Alexandria, Tennessee with 2,400 cavalrymen, a battery of artillery, and enough confidence to light a forest fire. Their mission was to ride into Kentucky, tear up track, burn stockpiles, destroy bridges, and disappear before the Union Army could react. And he planned to do all of it in the middle of winter. Through cold, snow, and enemy country, Morgan's men rode day and night. They crossed icy rivers, galloped through sleet, and wrapped themselves in blankets stiff with frost. Some described the wind cutting like a knife. Yet morale was high. They trusted Morgan. When he rode at the front, men followed without hesitation. By December 24th, Christmas Eve, they had reached their first major target, the stockade at Elizabeth. Union forces here were caught entirely off guard. As snow drifted over the fields, Morgan positioned his artillery and opened fire. Cannon blasts echoed through the quiet Christmas Eve sky. After a brief but intense fight, the Union garrison surrendered. Morgan spared the towns civilians. He insisted his men behave with discipline, but when it came to Union military property, he showed no mercy. The railroad falls. On Christmas Day, Morgan's raiders spread out across Kentucky like wildfire. They tore up miles of railroad track, heating rails over fires until they bent like pretzels. They burned rail depots and they cut telegraph lines, leaving the Union Army deaf and blind, and then they moved toward Morgan's biggest target, the Muldraugh Hill Railroad bridges. These were enormous wooden trestle-towering structures crucial to Union supply lines. Destroying them meant days, even weeks of repair. Morgan ordered his artillery into position. Cannon shells tore into the wooden beams. Flames shot upward, lighting the snow-covered hills, orange and red. Union forces scrambled to intercept him, but Morgan's mobility made him impossible to pin down. Every hour the cavalry moved against striking, burning, disappearing. By the end of Christmas Day, the two massive bridges were nothing but fiery ruins collapsing into the valley below. It was Morgan's greatest triumph. The Union scramble. A Union General, Jeremiah Boyle, in Louisville, went into full panic. Telegraph lines were down. Trains had stopped. Rosecrans' supplies were trapped. Boyle sent troops in every direction, but they were too slow. Morgan's cavalry had already vanished into a swirl of winter storms, taking back roads and country paths known only to the people of Kentucky. One Union officer wrote, "It was as if Morgan was everywhere and nowhere. A ghost in the snow." Morgan wasn't a ghost, just a brilliant cavalry commander with perfect timing. The damage he caused stalled the Union Army's advance for over a week. And in a war where timing meant everything, that week mattered. After 8 days behind Union lines, Morgan brought his raiders safely home. They had destroyed miles of railroad, captured hundreds of Union soldiers, burned two major bridges, confused and delayed the Union Army, and lost only a handful of men. When they rode into Confederate lines, cold, exhausted, and covered in snow, the cheers could be heard across camp. Morgan had delivered a victory when Confederate spirits were at their lowest, and because it happened on Christmas. Soldiers began calling it Morgan's gift. What the raid meant. The Christmas raid didn't win the war, but it did buy time. By delaying Union supplies, Morgan helped give the Confederate Army breathing room before the Battle of Stones River. one of the bloodiest fights of the entire war. The raid also cemented Morgan's legend. Newspapers across the South praised him. Young cavalrymen idolized him. Even Northern officers grudgingly admired the brilliance of the operation. It remains one of the most daring and successful cavalry raids of the Civil War. The Christmas Raid of 1862 is more than a military operation. It's a story about audacity, about leadership, about men willing to ride through bitter winter storms to strike against impossible odds. And it's a reminder that even in the darkest days of war, people will find a way to give a gift, even if, in this case, that gift was destruction, designed to help their cause survive. This was Morgan's gift, a fiery Christmas present that changed the course of the winter campaign of 1862.